There is a strange kind of silence inside the royal vaults. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of power of jewels so magnificent, so steeped in legacy, that even the world's longest reigning monarch chose to leave them untouched. These aren't forgotten ornaments or museum pieces. They are masterpieces of brilliance and craftsmanship, radiant treasures inherited across eras, yet kept hidden, unseen, almost whispered about. Why would a queen, one who understood symbolism more than anyone alive, refuse to wear jewels created to illuminate a throne room? What profound truth did she perceive in the pieces she left in the darkness? Tonight, we enter a world where jewelry behaves like memory, where diamonds carry destiny, and where the most iconic treasures reveal more through silence than through spectacle. Because sometimes the jewels a woman chooses not to wear tell a deeper story than the ones she displays. Queen Elizabeth II lived inside a universe defined by ritual, symbolism, lineage, and the quiet weight of history. Every gesture was intentional, every decision was curated. And nowhere is that philosophy more visible than in the jewels she embraced and the ones she refused. This video is not about collecting names of tiaras or cataloging diamonds. It is about psychology, intuition, legacy, and the emotional intelligence behind a sovereign who understood that power is not projected only by what shines in the light, but also by what remains in the vault. Some jewels were breathtaking masterpieces, radiant with opulence and grandeur, yet stayed hidden for decades. Others resurfaced only when she sensed they had found their rightful wearer. In this refined dance between presence and absence, Elizabeth shaped an unmistakable philosophy. A jewel is never just metal and stones, it is a message. A mirror, a story waiting for the right moment and the right woman. Today, we explore the pieces she quietly declined, the mysteries behind them, and the deeper meaning these choices reveal about taste, confidence, and sovereignty itself. A journey into timeless restraint, royal psychology, and the silent language of jewels. The silent philosophy behind her choices. There is an unspoken truth within the world of royalty. A jewel is never just a jewel. It carries lineage, intention, and the emotional residue of every woman who wore it before. Queen Elizabeth II understood this better than anyone. Across her 70-year reign, she was surrounded by masterpieces, tiaras ablaze with diamonds, necklaces cascading in brilliant rows, gemstones with histories stretching across continents. Yet some of these extraordinary treasures remained untouched, resting in silence as if waiting for a destiny beyond her own. To understand the Queen's decisions, you must first understand the psychology of her relationship with adornment. Elizabeth viewed jewelry as language. She believed it communicated far more than words: confidence, continuity, reverence, diplomacy, respect. For her, the decision not to wear a certain piece was as meaningful as the decision to display another. Each absence was intentional, each refusal a message. Many of the jewels she inherited carried imposing stories, gifts from empires, tokens of dynasties, or pieces so monumental in scale, they seemed almost too loud for a monarch known for restraint. Elizabeth prized timelessness, discretion, and harmony. She preferred jewels that reflected her inner sense of identity, steady, composed, consistent. Some grand pieces, no matter how breathtaking, did not fit that emotional silhouette. And yet she never allowed these masterpieces to fade into oblivion. Instead, she curated their futures. She passed them to the women she believed could carry their energy with authenticity: Camilla, Sophie, Catherine. In these decisions, we see her philosophy of legacy. The jewels she refused did not represent rejection. They represented vision. Elizabeth's selectiveness was not born of hesitation, but of clarity. She understood that wearing a jewel binds the wearer to its story. And if that story was not aligned with her aura, her steadiness, her quiet strength, her disciplined elegance, she would not claim it. In this way, her refusals were acts of sovereignty, of emotional intelligence, of inner authority. What the world often perceived as mystery was, in truth, mastery. And her choices invite a deeper question. What does a woman reveal when she chooses not to wear what everyone expects? This inner philosophy leads us directly into the first category of jewels. She declined pieces so breathtaking, they left experts stunned by her silence. Among the jewels Queen Elizabeth II rarely acknowledged publicly, several major pieces remained untouched throughout her reign, resting in silence as if she had quietly closed the door on them. One of the most striking examples was the Greville tiara, a dazzling honeycomb masterpiece originally loved by the Queen Mother. Many expected Elizabeth to wear it, yet she never did. Its bold geometry and commanding symmetry projected an energy that didn't align with her measured presence. There was also the monumental Greville festoon necklace, a 5-row cascade of diamonds so luminous it could command an entire stateroom. Despite inheriting it in 2002, she never brought it into the light. Its beauty was undeniable, but so was its intensity, and Elizabeth sensed the imbalance. Another silent heirloom was the Greville emerald kokoshnik tiara, crowned by a 93-carat emerald. A breathtaking jewel, yet one she chose not to place upon her head. Its dramatic presence carried a grandeur that contradicted her restrained aesthetic. These pieces, though magnificent, reveal her philosophy with perfect clarity. She believed not every jewel needs a wearer. Some demand a moment, a destiny, or simply another woman entirely. Some jewels were simply too monumental for Elizabeth's personal or masterpieces, crafted to dominate a room rather than accompany it. The most significant among them was the Greville festoon necklace. With its 5 monumental rows of diamonds, the necklace radiated an opulence that felt almost theatrical. Elizabeth admired it, but never embraced it. The piece expanded the space so intensely that it conflicted with her philosophy of quiet authority. She also inherited the aquamarine ribbon tiara, an elegant yet highly sculptural design featuring large oval aquamarines wrapped in diamond ribbons. Though visually poetic, the tiara felt airy, almost whimsical, too expressive for a monarch whose style relied on timeless solidity rather than romantic lightness. Elizabeth wore aquamarines often, but not this particular piece. The Greville emerald kokoshnik tiara, with its towering silhouette and monumental emerald, also fell into this category. Its scale projected a boldness that simply didn't resonate with her inner stillness. These refusals were not about beauty. They were about alignment. Elizabeth understood that jewelry amplifies identity, and she refused pieces that amplified something she was not. If you love jewelry, elegance, and the psychology behind feminine confidence, consider subscribing to the Jewelry Mind. Here, every piece becomes a story, and every story becomes a mirror of who we are. Among the jewels Queen Elizabeth II refused to wear, some were not merely beautiful, they were overwhelming. Pieces of staggering scale, masterpieces of craftsmanship, icons of brilliance designed to command an entire room with their presence alone. Yet throughout her reign, the Queen looked at these treasures with a calm understanding. Power does not always need amplification. Many royal watchers expected her to embrace these monumental necklaces and towering tiaras simply because they belonged to her. But Elizabeth understood something subtler, almost spiritual. Jewelry has energy. It expands or contracts the space around a woman. Some pieces amplify confidence. Others overshadow it. A jewel too large, too intricate, too saturated with past emotion can feel like wearing someone else's voice. Elizabeth, a sovereign defined by discipline and measured elegance, gravitated toward pieces that harmonized with her personal frequency study, luminous, sovereign, but never ostentatious. The grander jewels, especially those with multiple tiers of diamonds or striking architectural silhouettes, carried an aura that did not align with her restrained magnificence. They were masterpieces of opulence, yes, but they didn't resonate with her identity. Instead of forcing the relationship, she practiced what many women struggle with: discernment. She allowed the jewel to remain silent rather than forcing it into an appearance that felt emotionally incorrect. Her actions tell a deeper truth. Sometimes the most elegant decision is not to display grandeur, but to protect one's essence. And this restraint revealed a remarkable ability. Elizabeth could admire brilliance without needing to claim it. She could recognize splendor without making it part of her public image. In a world obsessed with possession and display, that is an extraordinary expression of feminine confidence. But these grand jewels were never meant to vanish. They were simply waiting for a wearer with a different emotional silhouette, someone whose presence matched their magnitude. Which leads us into the next revelation: the jewels she refused, not because they were too grand, but because they belonged to another woman's story, carrying the legacy she chose to honor through silence. Some heirlooms were emotionally unavailable to Elizabeth, not because she disliked them, but because they were already claimed by another woman's memory. The most powerful example is Queen Alexandra's wedding necklace, a masterpiece of pearls and diamond clusters worn for decades by Alexandra, and later by the Queen Mother. This necklace carried the warmth, charisma, and history of two formidable queens, and Elizabeth sensed that its emotional biography didn't belong to her. Another piece she quietly protected was the emerald choker originally crafted for Queen Mary, later made famous by Diana. Elizabeth inherited this Art Deco treasure in the 1950s, yet never wore it herself. Its bold green vibrancy and later, its deep association with Diana's iconic style made the choker a jewel shaped by other women's identities, not hers. The same emotional imprint surrounded the Greville tiara, so intimately tied to the Queen Mother's public image. Wearing it would feel like stepping into a role already perfected. Her refusal to wear these jewels was an act of tenderness. She let their stories remain undisturbed. The jewels too linked to another woman's legacy. There is a kind of jewel that carries more than brilliance. It carries memory. It carries the emotional weight of a woman who wore it so often, so intentionally, that the piece almost fused with her identity. Queen Elizabeth II inherited many of these treasures jewels that had become extensions of the Queen Mother, Queen Mary, or even earlier matriarchs whose presence still echoes in the architecture of royal history. And Elizabeth, with her precise emotional intelligence, recognized when a jewel's story belonged to someone else. Some necklaces and tiaras she refused to wear not because they were too grand, but because they were too personal, intimate artifacts tied to another woman's aura. She understood that wearing such pieces would not only blur identities, but dilute the legacy of the original wearer. Instead, she chose a different path: preservation through restraint. This is where her silence becomes a form of reverence. She let certain masterpieces remain untouched for years, even decades, because she sensed that their emotional frequencies did not align with her own. They were warm with a mother's memory, shaped by a grandmother's symbolism, or infused with another queen's charisma. Elizabeth knew that some jewels are so deeply imprinted by their previous owner that wearing them feels like stepping into a story that isn't yours. She didn't resist these pieces. She protected them, and in doing so, she demonstrated something profoundly rare: emotional boundaries wrapped in royal discipline. She denied the pressure to perform continuity by wearing every inherited jewel. Instead, she upheld continuity by honoring each woman's essence. The vault, for her, was not a place of dismissal, but of respect. A quiet sanctuary where certain legacies were kept whole. But this restraint had another layer: intuition. Elizabeth sensed when a jewel's next chapter required a different kind of wearer, someone whose spirit or modern presence could carry the piece into a new era without overshadowing the past. This is why some iconic jewels resurfaced only when passed to another woman, allowing the legacy to unfold without distortion. Her refusals were not rejections. They were acts of preservation, curation, and deep sensitivity to the emotional biography of each jewel. And this insight leads into our final chapter: the pieces she refused, not because they were too grand or too symbolic, but because their time had simply not arrived yet. The jewels that were waiting for their moment. Some pieces were never meant to shine during her own reign. Elizabeth possessed the rare intuition to recognize when a jewel's destiny lay ahead, waiting for another woman, another moment, another generation. The Greville Emerald Kokoshnik tiara, for instance, remained untouched until it found new life on Princess Eugenie's wedding day. Elizabeth sensed its symbolism: a towering emerald representing rebirth and generational continuity was better suited for a younger woman stepping into a new era. The Greville festoon necklace also waited patiently until Camilla emerged as its natural guardian. Its monumental brilliance matched her presence in a way it never matched Elizabeth's own. Even the aquamarine ribbon tiara, worn only once in history, resurfaced decades later in the hands of Sophie, Countess of Wessex, proof that Elizabeth curated each jewel's future with precision. And the emerald choker associated with Diana eventually reappeared on Catherine, symbolizing respectful continuity rather than overshadowed memory. Elizabeth didn't refuse these jewels. She preserved them so they could shine exactly when their stories were ready. Some jewels were not too grand, not too emotionally charged, not tied to another woman's legacy. They were simply waiting. Queen Elizabeth II understood timing: spiritual timing, symbolic timing, and the quiet intuition that tells a woman when a story is ready to be lived. Many of the pieces she refused to wear fell into this final category: jewels whose brilliance had a destiny that extended beyond her own lifetime. These were the treasures that demanded not just a wearer, but the right moment, the right era, the right chapter in the royal narrative. Elizabeth possessed a rare gift: the ability to see a jewel not only for what it was, but for what it would become. She sensed which pieces needed to remain in the silence of the vault, because their true power would emerge later on a granddaughter walking toward a new life, on a daughter-in-law stepping into global visibility, on a future queen rewriting the language of elegance for a new generation. In this sense, her refusals were visionary. They were curatorial choices rooted in emotional clarity and an understanding that heritage must breathe. She allowed jewels to mature in the dark, like ideas waiting for sunlight. And when their time arrived, they reappeared in ways that surprised and moved the world. This restraint is profoundly feminine. It speaks to a woman's intuition, her ability to sense when something resonates with her present, and when something is meant to shine elsewhere. Elizabeth's relationship with her jewels reminds us that confidence is not expressed through display alone, but through discernment. Through the courage to say, not now, not for me, not for this moment. And it leaves us with a deeper reflection. A woman's power is not measured by what she claims, but by what she chooses with intention. These silent jewels, once hidden, now illuminate a new generation of royal women. And through them, the Queen's legacy continues to shimmer, not through possession, but through wisdom. If this journey into the quiet psychology of royal jewels inspired you, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to the Jewelry Mind, and share your thoughts below. Which of these perspectives resonated with you the most? I would love to hear your reflections.